Evening, Cherries fans, and welcome to this latest show here on Up the Cherries in all departments. Before I welcome on my guest, here's a little bit about our sponsors, Dental on the Banks. To find out what they can do for you, visit dentalonthebanks.co.uk. Now, of course, we've got through in the Cup against Norwich on penalties. We have, though, been beaten twice against Arsenal and Man City in the Premier League. To be honest, they're bonus games. It doesn't get any easier, though, really, does it? This Saturday, we are travelling up to Anfield to face a Liverpool side who in 2020 won the Premier League, unfortunately with no fans there because of COVID, but also were Champions League finalists last time round. It is a pleasure to preview this game with Douglas Horne of the Dugout Football Channel. Evening, Douglas. How are you, mate?
I'm good, Craig. How are you? Thank you very much for having me.
Not a problem at all. I'm very, very well. Got through in the Cup against Norwich, of course, on Tuesday night. But then again, is it really a priority? And what do you make of the Carabao Cup? Is it something that Liverpool will want to defend?
Probably not, considering the start of the season we've had. And let's be honest, I think as well we need to be better. We've not been very, very good recently, but I think in the question of it was the Carabao Cup, yes, I know we won it last season, but I don't think we're going to go very far in it this time.
No, fair enough. Not to worries. So, of course, we firstly need to discuss the start of the season that you've had. So after winning the Community Shield, which some would consider a pointless trophy, but at the same time, you know, it's a bit of silverware, and it was a very good game actually against Man City. It's not been the start of the season that Liverpool really wants, is it?
It's been probably the start that we feared, to be honest with you. I mean, 2 draws, yes. I mean, going away to a newly promoted club in Fulham, I think it was a very, very difficult game. I mean, 2-2, to be fair, they should have won that game. They were the better team throughout that game. And I look at the way that they played as well. And they were very, very attacking, very, very fluent. And I think going away to a newly promoted side on the first day of the season, they're always going to be up for it. So I thought this game was probably one that I would look at and, yeah, maybe you obviously should win, but to come away with a 2-2, I'm happy with that. Crystal Palace, obviously, Darwin Núñez lost his head, literally. And the Palace game, we did everything but score in the first 25 minutes, and then one counter-attack, and Zaha's away, and he scores. And it's just been that kind of time. And then against Manchester United, dearie me, we were terrible against Manchester United. Very, very poor as well. So I am looking at this game. We are going to be a wounded animal. Let me just say that. But we have had some very good games against Bournemouth in the past. And obviously, I remember the last game between the sides. I think it was 2-1 at Anfield. I think Callum Wilson scored for you guys. And I think think it was Mané and potentially Salah that got both goals that day as well. So there's always very, very close games between the sides, and I expect that to be the case again on Saturday.
Of course, that was the last game before lockdown and before, of course, the pandemic. And, we put in a really, really good performance that day. Had the season continued, I think we would have stayed up. But, of course, COVID's got in the way, just couldn't get started afterwards. With regards to the performance against Manchester United, there was a lot of players that really disappointed me. Virgil van Dijk, for example, was exceptionally poor. But of course, we are a completely different side. Even though Man United have got off to a bad start, we're a very different side to what you've come up against the other day. How do you think that Klopp is going to approach this? Because I'm sure that he's going to see this and think, right, okay, get back to winning ways.
Yeah, it's one of the most unpredictable lineups I think you could probably say, because I think there will be a few changes. I've been saying that for a number of weeks. I think Costa Simicast deserves a start. I think Andy Robertson has been playing way too much football, and especially in the summer, I think we had those Nations League games, and he played in both of them. And I think there was someone actually tweeted the other day, there was actually like a red zone of players like playing too many games, and obviously Trent was one of them, and Andy Robertson was the other one. So I'm very hopeful that Robertson can get a break for sure. And then obviously midfield is a big key for us. Whoever plays in midfield is, I think you've probably got a better midfield than us at the weekend anyway, because I think, it's going to be Fabinho. I think Fabinho will come back in. And then I think what's going to happen is I think the two young players, Carvalho and Elliott, I think that might be the midfield. So it'll be a bit of a youthful midfield. And we obviously saw against Manchester United that Van Dijk probably his worst game in a Liverpool shirt. But I think there's a reason to that. I think Virgil van Dijk is one of those players who is very cautiously not trying to get injured ahead of the World Cup, because we saw what happened when he missed the Euros. He missed the Euros. I think he's kind of feeling that way again. That we're coming towards the start of a World Cup in November. Don't ask me why it's in November. Obviously,
it's daft, isn't it?
That's mental, absolutely mental. And I just think you're going to get loads of games between now and the end of, or the middle of November, obviously when the season sort of curtails and then goes back to Boxing Day. I think there's a sense of he's trying to just play a little bit cautiously, not to try and get injured, I think. So I think he will be up to speed eventually, but I can't say anyone had a good game against Manchester United. Anyway, I think the only players I think could probably go away with their heads held high in that game, probably Alisson, Luis Diaz, Harvey Elliott, and Mohamed Salah. I think the rest of them were very poor.
Of course, you mentioned there Carvalho, who, of course, was at Fulham. So he will know the side very, very well that we'll put out. How has he adapted to joining Liverpool?
I think he's been okay. He's not really started many games. I think the only one he started, I think, was against Strasbourg in a pre-season friendly when we lost 3-0. But that side was obviously after we won the Community Shield. But yeah, he's had a few substitute appearances, and I think he's one of those players who will definitely benefit from the 5 substitutions rule. I think he will have more game time as well. But yeah, the cameos he's had, Fulham played pretty well. Crystal Palace, he played pretty well as well. And then against Manchester United, could have probably scored had he curled that with his right foot. But yeah, he started pretty good so far. So I'm hopeful that he gets a start. I think he deserves a start on Saturday, but we shall wait and see.
Of course, the Liverpool side does ooze a lot of class. And of course, we saw Liverpool come very, very close to winning the Champions League again. Of course, it was not to be. A bit of a disappointing game in the end, would you say, that Champions League final?
It was one game where I think we were just knackered. and especially with obviously what happened off the pitch, which I don't really want to go too much into, because it's just some of the scenes outside the Stade de France were absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I actually remember being in Liverpool watching that game, and it wasn't the best. It wasn't the best final, and we just ran out of ideas. I mean, Courtois had a fantastic game, and I think many people back then probably expected one of the major front three to go. I don't think many people expected Mane. I think maybe people would have probably expected maybe Salah or Firmino to go away, but we just ran out of steam, unfortunately. And I think it's a case of, we made 3 finals last season. We made the League Cup, we made the FA Cup, and we made the Champions League final as well. So to be in 3 finals was fantastic. But I just think the Villarreal semi-final, I think, took out a lot out on the players, and especially, having beaten Wolves 3-1 on the final day, and then to find out that City had snatched the title again by beating us 1 point again. I think that kind of deflated them, and I don't think they were. Obviously, there was a big delay, obviously, in the final as well. I don't think it kicked off until, I think it was about 9 o'clock. I think it was until it kicked off.
You're right.
So again, that delay can cause. But look, Real Madrid, fantastic side, and they deserve to win, and they were the best team over the whole competition.
And of course, Villarreal, who you did play in the semis, did include a former Bournemouth player in Arnaud Danjuma. What did you make of him?
I have to say, Arnaud Danjuma is one player Liverpool have been after a lot of times. I think he's one of those players I think Klopp has wanted for a number of years. But I do think that I'm not so sure if he would suit Liverpool. I think he would maybe suit like someone like a Newcastle, or like just someone, maybe a Leicester or someone like that. But no, he played pretty well. Yeah, he played pretty well in those 2 games, and I actually forgot that he obviously played for Bournemouth, of course. But no, very, very good player. Got bags of potential as well. Remains to be seen if he stays at Villarreal. There's been a few wee murmurs that he could leave, but we'll need to wait and see about that one.
One of those sides, of course, as well as Liverpool, is Newcastle, and you could probably see him linking up with Eddie again, couldn't you?
You could quite clearly see it, yes. You could see him linking up with Eddie again.
Yeah. But of course, as you mentioned, Mane left the club. He went to Bayern Munich for quite a large amount of money, to say the least. But you brought in Darwin Núñez for quite a bit more. Of course, it's probably difficult to say at this point in time, because Mane went for 27.5 million. Núñez come in for 65 million. It's probably too early to say that, who would you prefer, Mane or Núñez? But from what you've seen of him, what do you think of Núñez?
He is raw. He is one of those players who I think if you give him 2 or 3 opportunities, I think he will probably score eventually. He's one of those players. I think he was very prolific in Portugal. And he was very prolific in Spain as well for Almeria as well. But the problem is as well, he's obviously suspended for this game.
Yes.
And won't be back until Everton. So, but I think Premier League defenders will notice now the time that he has obviously headbutted Joachim Andersen, that people will target him now to get under his skin a little bit. So he just needs to curb his temper. That is definitely one thing he definitely needs to do is curb his temper. But he's got lots of potential as well. And again, World Cup year, so you probably would expect to see him in the Uruguay squad potentially. As well. But yeah, so far, he obviously scored in the Community Shield, scored at Fulham as well. So I think he's getting used to the Liverpool side of things, but I think his red card, he'll just need to get used to the Premier League and hopefully he doesn't get sent off again this season, and hopefully will score a hatful of goals.
That's always the danger, that people will target a player that has got sent off so early. We've seen it with Jefferson Lerma in the Championship. Got an early red card, and to be honest, then every Championship midfielder is trying to wind him up, and some of them were quite unfair. To be honest, after that. But I can imagine that is probably going to be something that he's going to have to overcome. Of course, you've got Mo Salah up front, and quality player. Of course, very unlucky not to be going to the World Cup with Egypt. In fact, it would have been amazing to see him there. But how do the Bournemouth defence deal with him?
Good question. He has a good goal scoring record against you guys. I know that.
Yeah.
Obviously, he did score, I think, a hat trick at the Vitali a couple of seasons back as well. I think he scored in the 3-0 game, and obviously he scored in that 2-1 game as well. Very difficult. I think as well, like I looked at Malacia the other night, and the combination between him and Elanga the other night, I thought worked really, really well against Salah. Obviously, he did score in the end, but I think you double up on Salah. I think if you double up on Salah, I think you can get joy and not obviously get the ball off him. But he's just one of those players who just has a moment of magic in him, and I think if you let him have a space, especially on his left foot, then you're definitely in for trouble anyway. But I think to stop Mo Salah, I think you stop Liverpool.
Yeah. With regards to, though, the midfield, and you did mention earlier on that you feel that at the moment we've got a better midfielder than Liverpool, which is quite surprising to say, considering what Liverpool have done, and we're a newly promoted side. But if you were Scott Parker in this sort of situation, would you, pack the defence, go with a back four or a back five, or would you pack that midfield to maybe outmuscle them? And do you think maybe Milner and Henderson, Milner, of course, is 36 years old now, will potentially play together? Because, of course, we have got a very, very young squad. Adam Smith is the oldest player in the team who is likely to play against Liverpool. What would you do? Would you put more in defence to stop Salah, or would you pack that midfield to stop Liverpool actually breaking through?
Well, considering that our midfield is likely to be obviously Carvalho and Elliott, be very, very youthful, and then obviously the experience of Fabinho in the midfield, I think it's two sixes really. I think you pack the midfield, if I'm being honest. I think especially with our midfield problems, obviously no Thiago, no Naby Keita. I said after the Manchester United game, I'm fed up with Naby Keita. Absolutely fed up with him. So I don't know he won't be fit anyway. But we have lost a few midfielders to injury. And obviously James Milner shouldn't be playing 4 or 5 games in a row. He's not got the legs anymore, I don't think. And I think he's kind of slowly going towards retirement and potentially being a coach as well. But if I'm Bournemouth, I would probably be packing that midfield. I would probably play like a 3-5-2. I obviously watched your game against Aston Villa, and I think you had, was it 4 across the midfield? I think it was, or maybe 5 across the midfield. I think you've just got to go tried and trusted against Liverpool, and obviously know that we have got midfield injuries, definitely. But I think looking at your midfield of obviously like Lerma, and obviously the new boy Tavernier as well, I think you've got a good chance to get some joy in that midfield battle. Because as I said, I think our midfield is probably going to be Carvalho, Elliott, and Fabinho. And Fabinho, not been great, but Henderson, Milner haven't been great either. To be fair, I think you'd have to go along and say Harvey Elliott has been our best player so far this season.
Would you say that, of course, we've just recently been beaten by Man City and Arsenal. And I always say that games against the top six are bonus games. And Liverpool, of course, are within that, been in the top two for the past couple of years. Of course, won the Premier League in 2020. It's just a shame that there was no fans that were allowed into grounds at that point. Because I'm sure that Anfield would have been absolutely rocking at that time. But considering what you've seen from Man City and Arsenal so far, and to be honest, Arsenal looked brilliant. Arsenal did look very, very good. We probably gave them an easy time in the first 10 minutes. But after that, they were still a class above. Would you say that maybe Liverpool have slipped back a little bit because of the business that Arsenal have done, the business that maybe Spurs have done? Would you say that Liverpool have slipped back a little?
I think you'd have to. I think the title's still going to be between Liverpool and City. I think Arsenal, Tottenham, and Chelsea to an extent, I think have all strengthened as well. For us, you obviously got Darwin Núñez, we've got Fabio Carvalho, and obviously Calvin Ramsey, who I don't think is going to be fit for this game. Still a little bit, but I think he had a wee niggle when he came up from Aberdeen. Anyway, but I think we have kind of gone backwards a little bit. Because you play that amount of football that we did last season, and I think it will take a lot on the players as well. But Arsenal have strengthened very, very well with Gabriel Jesus, Zinchenko, some very, very good players in there. Fabio Vieira. Obviously, they have lost Bernd Leno, but I think they got Matt Turner in there as well. Obviously, US goalkeeper for the US. City. Calvin Phillips, Holland, obviously that's the major one, but Alvarez is an interesting one as well. I think he's going under the radar despite obviously Holland signing, but I still think it'll be between Liverpool and City for the league. I know obviously we haven't started very, very well, but we can go on a run like we did a couple of seasons back, and then I think we could do well, but Arsenal will definitely be up there. A lot of people have said to me, and included, that they don't reckon they'll get top four. But the start that they've made, if they add one or two more, I think they're good enough to challenge Tottenham and Chelsea for that third and fourth place. Because I still think Liverpool and City are going to be 1 and 2, whichever order.
I did predict at the start of the season that Liverpool would win the Premier League this year. And I still stand by that because I think the quality that Liverpool do possess. Would you say that, of course, Man City are desperate to win the Champions League? They've been desperate for years to win it, and they've never quite got there. Liverpool have always seemed to fare well in that competition. But do you think that this season the priority for Liverpool will be getting back on top of the Premier League and seeing what can happen in the Champions League? Because the draw does look fairly favourable in the Champions League. Of course, it's recently been done as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. We've got Ajax, Napoli, and I think for the first time ever, we've got Glasgow Rangers. So it's going to be very, very interesting battles there. But yeah, I do think that City will win the Champions League this season. I think they bought Haaland to win the Champions League. But whenever they get to the latter stages, there's always something that happens with them. And obviously, it was with us last season that obviously we went to the final. And City lost to Real Madrid after winning 4-3, I think, in the first leg. And then somehow losing from 1-0 up against Real in the Bernabeu. So I do think that there will be an incentive of Pep to try and get the Champions League. But I keep saying the City are not one of those teams that focuses on just one trophy.
Yeah.
And I do think that they will focus on all four fronts for sure. But Champions League, I don't know. Like if Liverpool can get a good run we going in the Champions League, never say never. But I still think that City are a magnificent club, and I do think as well that they will be close in the Champions League this season. They will be close. I think they've got a wee tasty group actually. They've got Sevilla, Borussia Dortmund, and FC Copenhagen. So again, not easy, and obviously Holland going back to Dortmund, of course. So it's going to be very, very interesting season. It's a long season, of course, but I think what's the difference this season is that the Champions League is actually starting on the 6th and 7th of September. Now, I can't remember it being that early before, but because of obviously the World Cup, they're trying to get the group stage finished in November the 1st and 2nd, I think. And then obviously they'll have the draw on the 7th for the the round of 16, sorry. So I think there's with it being in uncharted territory, to say the very, very least, to play the Champions League that very early, to be in a situation where you're like the group stage ended in November. That doesn't happen. The group stage usually finishes in December, and you've obviously got like 2-3 weeks before like the next games, etc. But I think the fact that they've got games so close between now and obviously November, it could make for some interesting ties in the Champions League. I think there could be a few wee shocks actually in the Champions League, but I'm not saying Liverpool or City are going to get knocked out and all that. I'd expect them to be sort of round to 16, quarterfinals maximum at least.
Well, hopefully this weekend we will have Dominic Solanke back, and of course, he used to play for Liverpool. Didn't really get much of an opportunity at Liverpool. But what sort of incentive is it going to be for him to actually put in that performance? And, considering that there's been frailties on Monday night against Manchester United, what do you think he will be going through his mind? Do you think he'll be thinking, right, okay, I can score? Will he know the players as well?
He should know some of the players. He'll obviously know Jordan Henderson, and he'll know James Milner, and obviously he'll know Mohamed Salah as well. It's funny. He was actually on the Champions League final bench against Real Madrid and Kiev. Many people forget this. He was actually a bench player for the final of the Champions League. So that didn't get on, unfortunately. But for him, yeah, it didn't really happen for him at Liverpool. I think it was one of those ones where I don't quite know why we signed him. Obviously, we were wanting a striker at the time, but it just didn't happen. I mean, fair play to him. He did score against Brighton on the final day. I think it was on a 4-0 victory. I think he rocketed one in the top corner, but didn't really get his chance. So, bit of redemption is there, I think, as well. And then obviously, you guys paid the money for him, and we were like, "Yep, just let him go, just let him go." But no, I think he'll have an incentive. I hope he gets a good reception at Anfield on Saturday. I'm pretty sure he will. Obviously, being a former player, you usually do get a round of applause if you come off. Or basically if you start ahead at the Kop or start at the Anfield Road, then the Liverpool fans always give you a good reception. So I'd expect them to get a good reception on Saturday. But I think he will probably target Trent. I think he'll target Gomez and Van Dijk. And I think if you play like a 3-5-2, could be very interesting. Could be very, very interesting indeed.
Of course, Bournemouth were, and we made this joke, didn't we? That you were our feeder club for a while. Although saying that, the feeding wasn't particularly very good. So of course we had Brad Smith, and we had Jordan Ibe, who one of his to be honest, probably his only notable thing to do was actually score against Arsenal in a 2-1 victory at Dean Court. What did you make of them when they were at Anfield? Did you see much of them, or?
Brad Smith was a very strange one because he played in a League Cup tie against Southampton and we won 6-1. He actually got a couple of assists that day. I was like, oh, okay, got a really good wee prospect here. Obviously, Aussie, of course, Aussie born. Yeah, and then after that, it just didn't happen for him. I remember he got sent off against Swansea for a very, very bad challenge, and then that kind of just summed his career up, especially at Liverpool. And then you came calling for Brad Smith. Jordan Ibe's a funny one. Jordan Ibe was one of those players who was obviously coming through the youth at the time.
Yeah,
and obviously I think he had Trent. He had. Trying to think actually, but he did come through a very, very good academy at Liverpool. It just didn't really happen for him. And then again, you bought Ibe, and he's one of those very frustrating players to watch. As you said the other night, he can do one thing. He can go past the player, but what he'll try and do is go past the player again and then just do too much. And then obviously, whatever happened to him after that. I know he's going through some, I think, mental health issues after that, but he was very frustrating to watch. And he's one of those players I thought he would have had a lot more prospect ahead of him, but just wasn't to be, unfortunately.
It's just a real shame, really, how everything's panned out for him, and hopefully he's getting himself sorted. From our perspective, there was times when he was playing and you thought, right, pass to Callum, and he didn't.
Yeah.
And, he was taking on players for, to be fair, he could beat a player. But then he'd turn around and try and beat that player again, like you say. And then, he wouldn't pass. He'd go for, a shot, which, let's be honest, only Messi and Ronaldo would score. So that was Jordan Ibe, unfortunately, in a nutshell. Of course, we were after a Liverpool player during the summer. We bought him in on loan from Liverpool. And apart from the Boreham Wood game, which we will not discuss anymore, because it was a bad performance by absolutely everybody, he was fantastic. Really, really good. What is going on with Nat Phillips?
The mysterious case of Nat Phillips. I'm surprised he's still at the club. I thought after what he did in that 2021 season, when we were obviously going through all the defensive injuries and all this lot, he played his part. Him and Reece Williams at the back played their part. And it's just, I'm surprised he stayed. I think he signed a new contract as well, which was a bit strange at the time, because I think at that point, he was probably his most valuable asset. I think he was probably our most valuable asset at that time. It's just not happened for him. I mean, he came in against Crystal Palace, and obviously people will know that he's not very quick, Nat Phillips, and he did get caught out against Zaha a little bit. But obviously, with the defensive injuries to Konate and Matip, I think he's had to obviously stick about. And there was another player as well, Sepp Vandenberg. He's had to stay behind as well. So doesn't make it easy for Nat Phillips, and I feel sorry for him, because I do think if had he not had the defensive injuries, I think he may have been on the way out. Maybe there might be something still done ahead of the transfer deadline day, but we'll need to wait and see about that one, and just depends when Konate and Matip come back.
Based on what you've seen, though, of course, he was fantastic for us in the Championship, but of course, it's a whole different level. Is he a Premier League player?
I think he is a Premier League player, but definitely at a lower sort of level Premier League player. He did well when he played for Liverpool. He did very, very well. It was just, I think he was coming to that stage where he needs to move. I think he does need to move, but remains to be seen whether or not you guys come back in for him, for sure.
So, to be perfectly honest, I'd still love him to come to the club. Because I think he was fantastic for us last season. But with Marcus and SA, who's recently joined from Feyenoord, I wonder now whether or not we'll spend the money elsewhere. We are linked with Ben Brereton Diaz, Ashley Maitland-Niles as well from Arsenal. So there's a lot of question marks whether or not Scott Parker will go in for Nat Phillips again, which is a shame because he did do so well last season. Of course, it's a big game for us because we want to get back to winning ways. Of course, Liverpool. At the moment, it's crazy to say it is only 3 games mind though, so let's not all get too excited. Are below us.
Yeah.
So, but how do you reckon it's going to go?
Do you know what? I think if we had got something out of Manchester United, then I'd be a little bit more confident going into this game.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that we've conceded the first goal in 7 out of the last 8 games makes me a bit wary. And as I said earlier, we have had some very good games in the past against Bournemouth. We've had some very, very close encounters as well. I think there'll be only 1 goal between us, to be honest. I think it's going to be a very, very tight game. And I think, as I said, I think 1 goal will settle the 2 teams.
To be honest, I've predicted every result right so far this season. So I predicted we was going to beat Villa. To be honest, that was probably a little bit more hope than anything else, but it come true. I did predict we weren't going to get anything from Man City. And to be honest, I did predict that Arsenal were going to beat us as well with my head. So I'm going to do something a little bit different and see if I can get 4 out of 4. It might not happen, but I'm going to go for a 2-1 win. Just out of pure hope, I should say. You can probably guess what I really think, but out of pure hope, I think, go for a 2-1 win, and you never know what might happen, but we'll see. It'll be an interesting one. And finally, before we let you go, Douglas, do tell everybody where they can find the Dugout Football channel.
Yeah, my YouTube channel is the Dugout Football channel. It's a basic football channel, but I do Premier League, I do Championship, I do loads of things content wise. So obviously if you like your football, then obviously come and check me out, because obviously I do a lot of Premier League. I cover obviously Bournemouth, I cover Fulham, Nottingham Forest. So I do cover a lot of Premier League stuff as well. But I have a variety of obviously Champions League as well. Going to try and get some Europa League and the Conference League as well. I felt I was a little bit. I felt like I sort of let them go last season. So just hoping to sort of, just grow as time goes by. And obviously you've got a fantastic channel here as well. But no, I can honestly say thank you very much for having me. And it is a pleasure. And obviously thank you for coming on our show as well. And obviously, guys, check out the preview that I did with Craig as well. But you're going 2-1 Bournemouth. I'm going 2-1 Liverpool.
Fair enough. All the links will be in the description below as well. Actually, a couple of last questions. So, do you think Liverpool can win the league? Do you think you will win the league?
I've got a second this season again. I just think we're missing that midfield creator in midfield. I think we need a midfield creator. So at this moment in time, I would say still second, but that's being realistic.
I'm going to stick with my prediction on our tier list and also on my own tier list as well, which is Liverpool to win the league. Champions League?
I've got Bayern Munich to win that, actually. I think Bayern Munich are going to win the Champions League this season. I just think they're one of those sides where they always seem to have... It's the same with City, really. There's one game they always seem to struggle and they always seem to lose, and then like they're out of the competition. But this season in particular, they've obviously got Sadio Mané, and I think Sadio Mané in a Bayern Munich side is going to be a handful as well. So yeah, I would say Liverpool probably quarterfinals, semi-finals at most, but I don't think we're going to win it this season, unfortunately.
And penultimate one, actually, Bournemouth. Do you think we can stay up, and where do you reckon?
Do I think you'll stay up? I think it's going to be very, very difficult. I think it is going to be very, very difficult. But if you get most of your points at the Vitality, then I think you will give teams a hard game, because the Vitality Stadium is a very, very small ground. It's one of the smallest grounds, I think, in the league. 11,000, 12,000, I think it is.
It's the smallest, yeah.
Always a good atmosphere there. So, and obviously any points away from home is an absolute bonus. I know you beat Southampton's 3-1 the last time I think you were in the Premier League.
Thank you. I'll tell you what, you got up in my estimations, Douglas, because I tell you what, for reminding us of that.
Yeah, I actually remember that. I think Callum Wilson scored 2 goals that day as well. So
yep.
If you can win your home games, then absolutely. I mean, I do have you guys to just go down this season, but I think if you get wins under your belt, including I think Wolves on Wednesday, I think it is.
Yes,
I think you could easily get enough points to stay up, and I think Scott Parker's learned his lessons this time as well, because it was obviously new to him when he was at Fulham, and I think as well he will have learned a lot. He will have learned a lot about the Premier League, so I think he's a good enough manager to keep you up.
And the last one, I've got to ask this because you're a Liverpool fan. And yesterday in the Carabao Cup, we drew your friends across the park, let's just call them. The blue half of Merseyside. What's going to happen to them?
Oh, easy win for you guys. Absolutely easy win. You've had some classic games with them. I think when you went down, I think you beat them 3-1. Yes. I think you had a 3-3 as well.
2-0.
Yeah, 2-0. So you've got some good games with Everton, but no, easy peasy Bournemouth win. Easy peasy. Especially if they don't sign a striker. I think Everton are one of those sides I think you've got to target this season, because their squad is not the best. It's not the best either. But as far as the cup concerns, I think you'll beat them.
And then we got them in the Premier League the week after.
Oh, wow.
If you had to put a pin in it, where do you think they'll finish?
Everton?
Yes.
I've got them 17th.
Just above us.
Just above you, yeah. And if I'm being honest, they were very, very close to being in one of my bottom 3 because they're just so bad recently. So bad. Honestly, it is the worst Everton side I think I've seen for a number of years. I vaguely remember the 97-98 team, where I think they just survived on the final day. I think they had to rely... Oh, this is going way, way back, but this is why my memory is so good. I think Howard Kendall was the manager, and I think they needed a 1-1 draw with Coventry, and I think it was Oldham that beat Southampton that I think that actually had Everton to stay up that season. I could be wrong, but I know Bolton went down that season as well. Honestly, Everton need reinforcements, but financial fair play. Yeah, got a new stadium coming up. Imagine Everton in the Championship in that new stadium. It'd be just weird.
Yeah, but it could well happen. May. Yes, and let's be honest. Harry in our preview show said that Everton are in big trouble. So sorry to all the Everton fans, but I think you're going down. But thanks again, Douglas, for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure, and keep up the great work with your channel. And I'm sure we'll catch up at some point in the season.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, and I'm pretty sure we'll catch up very, very soon as well.
Great stuff. Thanks for your time, Douglas. Speak soon.
My pleasure. See you later.
And thank you, everybody, for joining me on this show. Please do remember to hit the like, the subscribe, and the bell button below to be alerted to any new videos we do here on Up the Cherries in all departments. Please also do remember to subscribe to Douglas's channel, the Dugout Football channel, below. We've also done, of course, the Harry Redknapp preview show at the start of the season. So do take a watch of that. And Douglas is involved in that as well. We've also had plenty of special guests recently. We had the interview with Eddie Mitchell, and a big thank you to the Vital Forums for all their lovely comments about that video as well. Also, we've had Mark Housey, we had Arsenal Fan TV on for the Arsenal game. We've had loads of special guests, so please do cycle through the channel, but do remember to hit that bell, that subscribe, and that like button to be alerted to anything that we put out on this channel. We will be at the Liverpool game as well, so please do check out our video that will probably drop out on Sunday evening. So do check that out. But until the next video, up the cherries, and I'll see you then.